This isn't right. But you know what? I have a solution. In all seriousness, though, this is the beginning of the end. I don't know why I said it like that. You know what I'm talking about. Captain America Civil War. So, in this 13th installment of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we finally have some extra grounding in reality, because with the Russo brothers back at the helm of this movie, we have another story that dives deep into philosophical, psychological questions like, is it moral for heroes to operate as a free entity? Should heroes be held accountable for what they do? And just like Watchmen that came before, it is more interested in asking those questions than trying to answer them. And no, Patrick H. Willems, that is not a bad thing. The plot of this movie is that after all these years of the Avengers and their individual members superheroing without regulation or restriction, there's been a lot of damage done, and a lot of people have gotten hurt, and it's time for somebody to do something. And by somebody, I mean, apparently, Secretary of Defense Thunderbolt Ross and 117 different national governments, because of Tony and his antics. Actually, when you think about it, most of these events are because of Tony and his antics. So they really should have just called it the Tony Accords. But the very nature of the Sokovia Accords drives a wedge between Tony and Steve, because they're so different in identity and characterization that, of course, they're not exactly going to just agree on the Sokovia Accords. It's not going to work out that easily. But things get even juicier when the villain of the movie, Baron Zemo, decides, hey, I'm just going to blow up the UN meeting where the governments are converging to ratify the Accords, and I'm going to blame the Winter Soldier, Sergeant James Buchanan Barnes. Who's James Buchanan Barnes? That's the Winter Soldier. I just told you that. He's Captain America's friend. I don't know why I'm so weird in these videos. But Cap is like, hey, I don't think he did what you think he did, so I'm going to go defend him. I'm going to make sure that he doesn't go down for a crime he didn't commit. But in doing so, he committed a bit of a crime. But then Zemo activates Winter Soldier when he's in the government's custody, and Falcon and Captain America help him escape, and they are now fugitives, the three of them. So Iron Man, being a deputized member of the government, because he signed the Accords, don't worry about me, he has to go apprehend the three of them. But he can't do that alone, so he builds a team. But the plot doth thicken because there are other Winter Soldiers, and Bucky believes that's what Zemo is after, because the entire movie he's been asking for a mission report December 16, 1991. He wants to know the whereabouts of where some super soldier serum went to create other Winter Soldiers. So it stands to reason that Bucky thinks that this is Zemo's endgame. Steve and Falcon and Bucky, thinking that they have to take down 5 more Winter Soldiers, they get themselves a team together. And the teams meet in somewhere in Germany, and they fight in an airport. But best thing about this whole thing is the introduction of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, played beautifully by Tom Holland. I love that kid. I call him a kid, meanwhile I'm finally the same age he was when he was cast as Spider-Man back in 2015. I don't make the rule. Tony shows up, he realizes that this whole thing has been a huge scheme by Zemo and that he's been played, and he's like, you know what, I'll help you, we'll work together. But then there's one last ace in the hole for Zemo, and that is revealing to Tony that Bucky killed his parents. And a pretty intense fight ensues as Iron Man tries to kill Bucky, and Steve is like, you can't do that, I'm sorry, no. All of this stuff when I've finally just gotten through the plot. Now let's talk about the things and elements that work in this movie and what maybe doesn't. My favorite thing is that this plot is layered. It's got many different things going on, but they all feed into each other. It doesn't really feel like an A plot, B plot, C plot, D plot type of thing. It's all one huge, interconnected, overarching, free-flowing A plot that just takes turns throughout to keep you on your toes. You can't really go into this movie and expect... You can't just predict how it's going to go if you've never seen the movie before. It will surprise you in places because that's what a good movie does. I love that the conflict between Steve and Tony isn't as simple as just sign a piece of paper. No, I don't want to sign a piece of paper, because there's a scene in this movie where Steve was this close to signing the Accords, but Tony kept running his mouth, and they ended up not agreeing. Goodness gracious. It's not as like simple or hollow as a lot of people would have you believe. This was the natural progression of the way that their characters were introduced to each other in the Avengers. They've been headed towards this divide, this conflict, since the moment they met. Civil War is also a very logical and fitting continuation of Captain America's character arc from the Winter Soldier, because as he was in the last movie, he is focused on Bucky, and he's finally got a lead on where Bucky is, so of course he's going to go after it and try to save him. After all, Bucky is the last thing Steve has that connects him to the world that he used to know. Another one of the best things is how this movie expertly introduces Spider-Man and Black Panther to a wider universe that neither one of them were at all connected to before this. And it works so well. They're both so interesting in this movie. And then they got solo movies. The movie is a little bit weak in the major conflicts because it doesn't exactly like give you a reason for everybody's like stance in the battle. They don't all pick a side with a good reason, but it's okay because like what they give you works for each character, I suppose. I don't know. What am I, some sort of critic? I don't really want to waste your time though. I will say camera work is amazing. Direction by Anthony and Joe Russo is phenomenal. Performances are fantastic, and they really drive these types of movies. The Russo movies are pushed by characters, and that is the greatest thing about it. This movie balances everything that it goes for extraordinarily well. It doesn't waste any time. It gives you good heartfelt moments with all the major characters in the movie. The music is fantastic. The staging, the special effects for the most part are very solid. Just everything in this movie knocks it out of the park, and you already know what I'm about to say. Captain America: Civil War is it's spectabulous. But Captain America: Civil War, I guarantee you've seen it by now. So, again, if you liked it, comment below and educate me. Or if you don't like me, comment on like Reddit or wherever I end up posting this video. Tell me how bad I am, how much I suck. Because trust me, I've heard it before. And that's a lot of fun. Point is, I'll see you guys next time because I'm running out of time to do these before Endgame comes out. Why am I still talking?